Good morning, you guys, it's Karen and I'm here to talk about retinoid, well, Tretinoin cream, and can it kill you? And I know that might seem like a shocking title. It may seem like clickbait. I probably even put in the title that it's not clickbait. And I'll tell you something funny. I didn't know what clickbait was until very recently when I went to a YouTube conference. I spent a day with YouTube employees and there was a chat about clickbait, and I was the one putting my hand up going, excuse me, what is clickbait? I had no idea what that was. Clickbait, for those of you that don't know, is when you use a shocking title but that's not really what you're talking about, just to sort of draw people in. This is not that. This is a serious subject. I found out some information from my research that I thought would be interesting, if nothing else, to share with you guys. And I feel like it's something you should be aware of and something that you could maybe take into account in your decision as to whether to use Tretinoin, to start using it, to continue using it, etc. It certainly will affect my use of the product. So how did this come about? Well, I have been looking into Tretinoin firstly because I was doing that video on Tretinoin versus Differin, and also because I'm fairly new to it. I've only started using it in the last month, and all I could remember about it was that we used it when I worked in the hospital. For those of you that don't know, I worked in medical research in the hospital, and we used oral Tretinoin, so drugs that were taken as an anti-cancer drug. But I remember some horrific side effects from it being used orally, and so I wanted to look into, well, how much of it do we actually absorb through our skin, how is it absorbed, etc, etc. If this is something I'm going to be using long term, you know, I'd like to know everything about it. Whilst doing that research, I came across a blog, and it was a lady saying that she's no longer using Retinoid, and I was interested to find out why. And she talked about a study whereby it was split into two groups. One group was using a retinoid cream, and the study was stopped because people in the, I'm going to say Tretinoin because it was Tretinoin cream they were using. People in the Tretinoin cream group were dying. And so they halted the study. This, of course, piqued my interest because medical research is my area of interest. And I went immediately to find out, well, let me have a look at this study and how it was run and what exactly the people were doing on the study. What were they trying to find out? What was the end point? I was definitely curious, but in my head I was thinking, I'm sure that this is just a dramatic story. I don't think that people have died from using a cream. There was 120 participants and they were split into two groups. And so a very small study in terms of research. So they were split into two groups of, say, 60 in each group. 60 men were being treated with Tretinoin cream, 60 men were being treated with a placebo that did absolutely nothing. When I say these numbers, it's there or thereabout, it's not exactly. So 6 months before the study was due to end, so that was about a year and a half into the study, I think it was a 2-year study, they noticed that there was a lot of people dying in the Tretinoin group. But when something like people start dying or people start having really important events such as heart attacks, then you get a statistician to look at it and tell you, is this just the normal amount of people that would be expected to die because of their age and because of their conditions, etc. And then it's decided if it is statistically significant or not. When I looked at the percentages of how many deaths there were in the Tretinoin versus the non-Tretinoin group, it didn't look that much. But when you actually worked out the numbers, there was about 30 more people had died in the Tretinoin cream group, and it had been decided by a statistician that this was statistically significant, meaning that it was more than just chance. It wasn't just to do with the fact that they were elderly. Okay. So what I want to do is run you through what facts I find are reassuring and that make me feel like it's okay to use Tretinoin, and then also the facts of surrounding this study, the facts that are concerning and that would make me reconsider, and then I'll give you a summary at the end. The first reassuring fact is that our body only absorbs between 1 to 8% of the Tretinoin that we put on our skin. So there's not an awful lot getting through. And in this study, they were using a 0.1% twice a day. So that's quite a high level, and I don't think any of us would be using that for anti-aging. I think the most anybody would use would be 0.1%, possibly daily, I don't know, but I don't think I'd ever use 0.1% daily. I'd maybe use it every other day. Is that these patients were elderly and so not in the best of health, and although it did show to be a significant number of people, I don't believe that it's impossible. I do believe that is chance, that you take a group of 100 people, split them down the middle, you know, nearly all of those could die and none of those, and I still think that could be down to chance if you are elderly and not in the best of health. The cause of death was, there was 3 kind of top things that were causing the deaths. There was lung cancer, vascular problems and respiratory problems. These were the top 3, and I think vascular came out number 1. That was the number 1 reason why people were dying. So there's 3 groups of illnesses there that seem to be unrelated to anything that could be caused by using a tretinoin cream. The other thing is that although it's statistically significant, I don't know what percentage they decided made it significant. It may have been, like, there is a formula that they have, there is a maths process, and it could be that had 1 person less died, it wouldn't have been statistically significant. The next thing that gave me some comfort is that the investigators of the study, and when I say investigators, I don't mean like actual investigators, the people that are leading a study, you've got what's called a PI and a CI, a principal investigator and a chief investigator, and so there has to be those 2 for a study. They will have to provide a report as to what they believe happened, and they said that they believed it to be chance, and I don't see that there would be any advantage to them to lie, if you like. They, you know, I would see that that is an encouraging thing, that they believe it was down to chance. So all of those things put together, I found to be reassuring that this is just chance, and it has very little to do with the cream that they were using. However, there are some things that concerned me, and they are: Tretinoin is a toxin, and I don't know if that's something that people are aware of or not, but it is a toxin. So that's something that you think, okay, I mean, it is produced by our body, but there's a level to how much your skin produces because it's a toxin, and so there is something there that you're like, okay, we are dealing with a toxin here, so we do need to be aware of that and be careful with it. Vitamin A poisoning is a known condition, and do you remember I explained that when we put the cream on, we are absorbing between 1 to 8%, and it's being absorbed systemically, so it's getting into your blood. So although it's nothing like taking a tablet, you're still getting some of it into your system, and so that's something that's a little bit of an alarm to me, because you think, well, how do these strengths compare, and what is the point that it becomes toxic in your system from applying it topically? I found another study that was using it orally, and it was to find out if taking tretinoin would stop or prevent lung cancer. But this other study was testing it to see if it would prevent lung cancer from forming in people that were smokers. What actually happened is the trial was stopped again because people were developing lung cancer. Is that tretinoin alters the function of your epidermis. So, you know, there's a lot of things we do in life for beauty and whatnot to alter the things that nature's given us, but there is a natural function and a natural aging process, and this is a toxin that you are using to alter the function of your skin. You're also not supposed to use tretinoin when you are pregnant, and that is because there have been studies, again, it was these studies that were horrendous to read, but it was on a lot of different animals where they had used cream, and it had made a difference to the development of the fetus. Now, there are a lot of drugs that are specifically not to be used in pregnancy, but are fine otherwise, as far as we know, but there is something that makes you think, well, if it is that strong that it can change a developing fetus, then it gives you an idea of how strong a drug it is, of how strong a product it is, even in cream form. Final piece of information that was concerning to me was I found a couple of, not studies, but experiences of people that had blurred vision from using tretinoin cream, and one particular woman who had neurological effects from, she believes, and her doctors believe, from using tretinoin. And I know that I have been using this Retinoid cream, and typical for me, I'm a bit of a bull in a china shop, and if I'm going to do something, I always do it a bit too, you guys have seen, I use too much. I'm not as careful as I should be, and I was putting it up to here, into the crease of my eye. Wasn't putting it right on my eyelid, but I knew that it would travel a certain amount, and I was putting it there. And I have noticed that I have had blurred vision. And I put that down to, I've got reading glasses that I use, but I've got different prescriptions on different ones. And I remember saying to my husband, I need to get some new reading glasses that are all the same prescription and all my current prescription. But actually that made me think, could it be that I've been putting the Tretinoin too close to my eyes? Because it definitely happens after using it. I'm more blurry and I can't read as easily, and I've ended up just going, oh, I'm not reading this anymore. And I thought, oh, it's obviously the cream's gotten into my eye a little bit. So that was something that was definitely of a concern to me. A few experts have looked at the study in where the men were dying and given their opinion, and the kind of group opinion is that this was chance, that this was nothing to do with the Tretinoin cream as far as they can see, but that it should be used in elderly men with caution, or in anybody with lung cancer with caution, and that professionals prescribing Tretinoin should consider whether or not they let their patients know about this study. It's not at a point where people have to know, it's just that they would consider it to be good practice to let people know what has happened. So let me tell you what my final thoughts are and what my current plan is. So I would say, if you are using Tretinoin, don't take a multivitamin. That would be my number one thing, because we know that some of what you're putting on your skin is getting into your blood. Don't add to that by taking a multivitamin that has vitamin A in it. Don't take vitamin A. Beta carotene is something completely different. That is a different form of vitamin A, and that's not what I'm talking about. But have a look at your multivitamin. Make sure it doesn't say vitamin A on it. It's kind of hard to overdose on vitamin A food-wise unless you eat liver every day, but I would say don't take a multivitamin if it's got vitamin A in it. Don't use near your eyes. That's something that, number one thing I'm going to stop is I will put it above my eyebrow, and that's it. I'm not going to be using it even underneath my eyebrow anymore, because that's scary that I have blurry vision. It may be to do with my glasses, but I'm not going to take the risk knowing that other people have had blurred vision and neurological problems. I would say don't use Tretinoin if you are a smoker, if you're pregnant obviously, or if you have cancer. I would just say don't put it on your skin, don't take the risk, because there's obviously all sorts of mechanisms that we just don't know about at the moment. I would say that if you have any symptoms of blurred vision, of bone pain, which is a big side effect of retinoic acid poisoning basically, then stop using your Tretinoin. If you have any unusual symptoms, anything that is different for you, stop the Tretinoin and see if it goes away, and then you might decide that it was related to it. If you're really concerned with this information and you're just like, no, that's it, I would like to stop this now, you can use retinol. There isn't the same concerns with retinol. The differin and all of that, that's a grey area. So I would say if you're going to stop, you need to stop the strong retinoids, but you could use retinols because they have a longer conversion rate. The products that are the most worrisome are, I mean, all of this is surrounding Tretinoin, but it's the ones that don't have to convert many times. So retinol is something that you can use without, as far as we know, any concerns such as these. So that's what you can do if you want to continue on with your retinoid journey. For me, I am using 0.025%, and like I said, I am not going to put it near my eyes, but I am going to continue using it. At the moment I'm using it every 3 days, sometimes every 2 days if I feel like my skin has gotten used to it, and I will go up to the 0.05% when and if my skin acclimatizes to this one. I don't know if I'll ever use the 0.1%. If I do, it will be no more than twice a week, because, you know, these studies are using it pretty heavily, but it's something that I will be keeping an eye on. I will check for new research. If I find any new information, I'll let you know. There's a couple of research sites where I get email updates, and I'll certainly keep an eye on things. I was going to say I'm surprised this wasn't in the news, but it may well have been in the news, but, you know, unless you watch the news every day, all day, which I barely ever watch the news, then you wouldn't know about it. But I will be using it with caution. I'll be really, exactly as I've said to you guys, if I have any unusual symptoms, then I will stop it and see if those symptoms go away. I will probably put it as far as here, and like I said, above my brows. I'll make sure I don't go too near my eyes at all, and see if I still get any blurriness. If I get blurriness, then I'll just move it down even lower. I think that's everything there is to tell you. I hope that this hasn't scared you too much. I know a lot of you, like me, suffer with anxiety, and I don't want people going and, you know, worrying about what damage they've already done. Like I said, it's been, the experts have said it was down to chance, but I also believe that there's no smoke without fire, that it is a toxin, and that there is a lot we don't know about it, so it's something to be wary of. Anyway, I hope that you found that really interesting. I would love to know what your decision is on watching this, because there will be people, you know, depending on your personality and whether you are, sorry, pulling up my bra strap there, whether you are like me, an anxious person, or if you're a risk taker, there'll be people that say, oh, that was just because they were old, I'm going to continue exactly as I am. Or there'll be people that are like, I'm giving up, I'm not using it anymore. Or there'll be people like me that kind of middle of the line, that are going to be a bit more cautious. And I'd love to know what your opinion is. And were you aware of this? Were you aware that it was a toxin? Were you aware that it's an anti-cancer drug? It's a very interesting product. Anyway, that's everything. I'll list all of my makeup and jewellery and top, etc. in the description. Thank you so much for watching.